A brief synopsis of Christian 21 information and revelations for the Great Spiritual Awakening Tartarian Communication Systems and Reset Mechanics Part 1 by Leon George. Sinclair. There is no such thing as coincidence. We live inside a holographic simulation, ruling out coincidence, entirely subtle simulation rendering in accordance with the biological frequencies that one's own biosphere emits as we pass through our own individual paradigm's separate corridors of potentiality in the seemingly long journey from birth to grave, experiencing the experiences, at first as a young neophyte in the Academy of Spiritual Evolution. We cut our own teeth as individual nodes on a larger network. The implications of this network we're totally unaware of until now. Frequencies, sound, and motion create physical matter on the physical plane, navigating this etheric terrain on the plane of our understandings of the world that we inhabit. As we experience this reality in real time, our biosphere emits a constant frequency extending out from our vessel. These frequencies interact directly with the simulation code /ether, and this is what manages your game player experience on a personal level. Here on Earth, these frequencies are dulled down and made insignificant by the background frequencies of modernity, but they're for exactly this reason. Desire, intent, joy, satisfaction, love, sympathy, empathy, determination, and pride orchestrate through an 18th density etheric system of technological bewilderment, making synchronicity appear as useful coincidence, fate, or even luck feathered into one's own perceptual paradigm by the multifaceted matrix of simulational experience. Normally, back home you manifest your world around you, based on the collective ideals of your species' desires for what they consider to be the perfect existence agreed upon telepathically. In the same way that you check your email every day and get notifications, back home you do all this and much, much more in your mind. Here in third density and unlawful density in itself, accidents happen. Well, they don't back home. Accidents can't happen, but our matrix simulation code has been hacked. Gondoliers carry passengers across the lagoon, with the huge manufacturers and liberal arts building in the background at left and the electricity building at right. The simulation ether is the interaction between the experiencer and the experience itself. The pineal gland is the spiritual hardware facilitating this interaction. Life is not what you assumed or were taught. Life isn't what you thought it was, and it's not what you thought it wasn't either. The parasites also had control of Looking Glass, the actual realm-specific technology, or console that controls the attributes of this simulation's parameters on the physical plane of existence itself. So they really did control all that you see and hear. The vessel that you are wearing right now, the one you were born into this life, has also undergone many changes to make you more manageable, more predictable, more driven by the 7 deadly sins. Your new brain was actually designed around pride, superbia, greed, avaricia, lust, luxuria, envy, invidia, gluttony, gula, wrath, ira, sloth, acedia. Bear with me because we have a few rabbit holes to stroll down. I know these brief synopses are hardly brief, but you can't explain something without actually explaining it. Christian 21 has brought so much intel to those who are ready to hear it, that it literally boggles my mind. I have now written slightly over 1 million words on Christian's information and revelations in just 4 years. It's not my intel, it's not even Christian's intel, it's your intel. But free will gives you the option to ignore it, should you choose. Many people didn't listen to me regarding the COVID vaccine jab. They didn't read my texts, didn't watch, or look at the information I presented long before the vaccine rollout even started. Oh, that's too long. I don't have time. Standard response for me, from family, friends, midwives/GPs, whether it was text or a video, or even a chat. Too busy, Leon. Oh well, c'est la vie. I'm not as stupid as some people wished I was, and I am simultaneously way more stupid than other people could possibly imagine. It's for you, the reader, to divine your own truth in the obvious or not nature of reality for yourselves. Ignore what your conscious mind reports about my personal way, my personality, my foul language, my strange sense of humor, my dress sense, my nefarious historical canvas, or the way I describe situations. You need to look at the intel based solely on the merits of the intel itself. I can't explain situations and circumstances outside of my own personal paradigm. I can only offer my best understandings of what I understand, and I endeavor to deliver Christian 21 intel as best as I can within the confinements of my own third density understandings and via the life path that brought me to 122 Fratton Road in Portsmouth in 2022. Judging a book by its cover is what we are taught to do. If not taught, we assimilate this social mechanism via societal osmosis in the same way that we subconsciously understand how to breathe without actually thinking about breathing. It comes as second nature. The same as first impressions and assumptions. To Christian 21 in Rome at the Vatican. For the people who are interested in their own futures and what is going on in the world right now, and to answer all the questions on these fantastic Tartarian research videos that are popping up all over the place all of a sudden, let's have a deep dive on all the strange anomalies that these researchers have hit a brick wall with. In doing this, I hope to show the doubters how easy it is to revisit history and see what really happened. You can do this in your own mind. You don't need to Google anything, you just need to understand Christian 21 intel, and that's what I'm trying to do here, so bear with me, please. The World's Fairs and Expos at the end of the 1800 were not to showcase the futuristic technology of tomorrow, they were to rub the nose of the cloned population in the technology and lifestyles that they had just lost, never to see again. You see, some of the cloned population were the people who created Tartaria, now mind-wiped and reborn. They became the children on the orphan trains, after cloning via the removal of stem cells. Their previous vessels were sacrificed, and a twin copy was created and grown in underground labs, raised for 3 or 4 years, while the 33rd degree Freemasons, who were spared only because they need them, orchestrated the big cleanup, resetting the stage for the new arrivals. These children were, only a few years previously, in a Tartarian vessel body. Or maybe one of the thousands of giants that inhabited Tartaria from east-west and north-to-south. Or maybe one of the other strange fellows that inhabited the great Tartarian culture. Before these children were killed, a few years prior to the World's Fairs, when the same soul in their chest was in one of the adults of the reset repopulation that was in progress in their specific area, and were the actual souls who lived as Tartarians in Great Tartary. Reset and mind-wiped, now in a smaller and more compliant vessel, downsized brain, less agile, and in no way telepathic. This vessel you're in now was designed around the 7 deadly sins. It is nothing like you were in during your lives lived as a Tartarian. In this life now, if you were the same size as you were in your Tartarian loop/life, you would be considered here a giant. But these children were most certainly comprised of some of the founders of Tartaria, and all of the denizens of that great civilization, because that's who was the target of the harvest. They were mixed up with a large percentage of NPCs. As one very blatant example of this, one of thousands, but probably the best example to look at apart from China, is Melbourne, Australia. At some date in the 1860, the population of Melbourne was merely 147 people. Yet, in only 30 years, Melbourne's population was 268,000, same with China as we discussed previously. Since the 1960s, China has had a one-child policy. When the single-child policy was introduced, China's population was apparently 500 million. Yet, an interior view of the Smithsonian Institution left, and on the right, an interior view of the agricultural building, looking down from the gallery level, showing exhibits staged by some of the US states at lower left, and Canada at lower right. Cabbage Patch Kids equals code for cloned children. In plain sight. In only 50 years, the population of China grew to an explosive 1.4 billion, meaning that every single woman in China would need to have 5 children each, but none of them did, because of the one-child policy. So where did 1 billion people come from in just 50 years? Insert/NPC/clones. They show this in films, extinction being one that springs to mind. The leading family turn out to be androids, code for NPCs. Even their children are NPCs, evidenced by a cut on the boy's arm, and his sister's face has damage on her cheek, revealing electronic parts and components. Obviously, human NPCs are organic. I'm not suggesting that your neighbors run on batteries, but I am suggesting that they are non-player characters, only alive to conform and to do as they are told by the government. Don't forget that there is only a max of 520 million true souls here. The rest are fake people, simulation furniture and inserts inserted to embroider the specific reality that they wanted you to believe in, people who you look to in your immediate world to greater understand a situation that you are hoping to gather more information on, or advice. The people who you see regularly as part of your daily/weekly routine. These regular people at the gym, school, workplace, these people just getting on with their lives, they are not meant to be there. It's hugely interesting, quite fascinating to be honest. You need to understand this next part. I try explaining it to people in comments on other pages, and in replies to the comment section on the video pages, but the problem is that to explain a small aspect to this, you need to lay a lot of groundwork or your explanation will not make any sense to a newbie. And don't forget, everyone is a newbie right now because this intel is no older than 4 years. We are just unraveling it all now, right at the end of the Great Awakening. The truth could not be told before now. It was too dangerous to speak this truth pre-2022. Come on, think about it. Freemasons kill children to discover the shape of the earth. Christian can explain the shape of the earth as if he used to write Haynes manuals for planetary architecture. He has told everyone everything. He's explained it so well that I can almost taste the food that we don't eat. So, for the record, there are not 10 billion people here on Earth. There is no more than 520 million real people. The parasites do not reset the whole planet at the same time. It can take roughly 100 years to fully reset the plane. Repopulation is an ongoing process over that period. I'll explain reset mechanics a bit later in this same synopsis, if I remember. The seventh reset started in the American West in 1828, and by 1871 in Russia, the reset had completed its cycle. Tartaria was completely forgotten about within 2 decades. Discussion of this topic was frowned upon, ridiculed, and annihilated with religious fervor. Tartaria started disappearing off of cartographers' publications in 1780, and since that date, a very detailed and surgical deletion of Tartarian knowledge, people, buildings, technology, writings all deleted. Even museum artifacts, when realized what they were removed, destroyed, recatalogued, or hidden. Spaghetti westerns, black and white, John Wayne cowboy and Indian films, and Clint Eastwood movies, etc. These are all to program your consciousness and subconsciously guide your thought patterns regarding the history of the continent where the films are set, without your realization that although this looks like entertainment, and you like John Wayne movies, it is actually created as a patented mind control device developed and patented by the CIA. 4. You don't see Russian cowboy and Indian movies, do you? That's because the programming that they needed to create is specific to what was already there. I.e. in America, there were lots of bison, lots of very spiritual Native American Indians, and lots of Tartarian architecture. Way too much. They needed some of it. They couldn't destroy all the Tartarian buildings as they needed a certain amount of them for themselves to use as government administration centers, education establishments, and any other arm of society that you need to imbue on the public the idea that these institutions are hoary with age and steeped in tradition, governance, and power to start the new world with. Because the ostentatiously lavish architecture and decoration of these saved Tartarian edifices automatically instills in the mind the idea of power, wealth, and grandeur, which convey other impressions of correctness, accuracy, professionalism, dedication, perseverance, knowledge, and historical provenance. This is all done in your mind immediately as a 7-year-old walking to school on your first day at Eton College, or Hogwarts, or other places like the Natural History Museum in London. These assumptions are all made as your first impressions. You would not have the same sensations if you were to be walking into your first class at school in a concrete box on a rough council housing estate in Manchester. Tartarian architecture is spiritually ergonomic and highly positive in nature, running on the Earth's natural grid. Obviously, the parasites can't handle any positivity whatsoever. But for their plan to work, they needed to keep some of these buildings as a part of their stage props while they generate a new script around their obvious apparentness, deleting the past as they moved forward. The Rothschilds liked a lavish palatial Tartarian edifice or 12, a little place to call home. Same for the rest, but they also needed the cities to function and be productive. So by default, they couldn't start tearing all the city centers down like they did in Chicago in 1893. That wasn't a temporary stucco plaster and timber-framed city, was it? Fuck. The location of the Chicago Fair World's Columbian Exposition in 1893 was likely the main district of Tartarian power in that geographic location. It was a whole district that they destroyed. Look at the size of the buildings, their scale, the waterfront boulevard and lagoon walkways. These buildings, all removed straight after the World's Fair, were destroyed as part of the deletion and rewrite of history. I looked into the Chicago World's Fair of 1893. There was a bell, a large bell, on a platform with cables going from the framework down below the bell floor to a chamber below the ground. This picture was taken once and used only twice ever. The first time it was used was in a catalog that there is now one remaining copy of. This catalog lists the show's exhibits in a document after the show was concluded, and although damaged and with half-readable text, the picture is complete. The detail of the cables of the bell's framework that go below the bell's floor can be clearly seen in the time-worn image. Yet, in the later edition of the exact same image taken on the very same glass plate, a copy in essence of that exact same picture, the image of the actual bell, is painted out and no longer visible. Merely the framework is present in the latter image, a very careful and painstaking deletion of the bell from the only surviving public image of this device. The surviving copy of the catalog is in a private collection. That's the only reason it even survived. That is one small story of literally thousands of similar stories. Vanilla skies you may have heard of? Same shit going on there, the vanilla sky. Vanilla skies are interpreted as evidence of intentional manipulation to rewrite history. The skies were manually cropped out or painted over during development to hide uncomfortable or out-of-place objects. They are called vanilla skies because of the old sepia-brown photography techniques, making the skies appear a vanilla color. They simply painted out the uncomfortable image, be it a craft UFO they were. More common in history, or a blimp/dirigible/airship. The Wright brothers didn't invent flight. The Tartarians had already perfected flight about 1,000 years prior to Wilbur and Orville and their gawky and flimsy pile of twigs taking off. Don't forget that the World's Fairs were those days' version of the ideal home exhibitions of the past, the Epcot Center experimental prototype for the community of tomorrow, as seen in Disney World, Florida. But these World Expos that took place over about 60 years in total were not showcasing what people should expect life to be like in the near future. No, they were, as usual, for several highly nefarious reasons, mainly for three predominant reasons plus others. 1. They have to use in plain sight to show you reality and truth dressed up as either fiction or fantasy, or to subtly reveal technology that you will never actually see and use. 2. To have a semi-feasible excuse to pull down the buildings that the World's Fairs were held in. 3. To make sure that the people who created this spiritual technology and the wonderment of Tartaria got to see what they had lost even though they never remembered it was already theirs. Their mockery is essential. Tartarian technology and architecture was based on 111 Hz and 432 Hz, plus the solfeggio scales, and other natural resonant healing frequencies. The scale traditionally consists of 9 tones, each associated with a different aspect of physical or spiritual wellness. These tones were used in ancient Gregorian chants and sacred music before being rediscovered in the 1970s by Dr. Joseph Puleo using numerological methods. 174 Hz. Often called the healing frequency, it is believed to alleviate physical pain and stress. 285 Hz. Thought to promote tissue restoration and cellular regeneration. 396 Hz. Associated with the liberation of guilt and fear, intended to turn grief into joy. 417 Hz. Believed to help undo negative situations and facilitate change or trauma healing. 528 Hz. Known as the love frequency or miracle tone, it is the most famous for its claims of DNA repair and transformation. 639 Hz. Linked to improving communication, empathy, and interpersonal relationships. 741 Hz. Described as a detoxifying frequency that aids in problem solving and self-expression. 852 Hz. Associated with spiritual awakening and replacing negative thoughts with positive ones. 963 Hz. Often called the frequency of gods, it is believed to activate the pineal gland and raise consciousness. Tartarians lived without debt, with lifestyles based on abundance as opposed to scarcity, and spiritually ergonomic architecture that healed as naturally as the grass grows. But they needed these people to see this amazing wonder, showcased at the world's fairs, but only after they had had their minds wiped to mock. Mockery is a huge part of the inversion, especially this last reset, with the introduction of the 7 deadly sins. This reset was most certainly the worst. The parasites made the people pay money to go and be amazed at the new technology that they could look forward to enjoying. They could even fast-track a family and buy an orphan to help work on the farm when in reality, the Industrial Revolution was merely the downgrading of superior technology that Tartarians used on a daily basis. A quick recap for potential newcomers. As we discussed in a previous brief synopsis, locomotives, as Christian said 3+ years ago, the nodal lattice network that you lot here call ley lines, were needed to be dampened because the energy coming off them was too positive. So the parasites harvested that energy with the Baphomet Tower's large metal power pylons that distribute energy to and from homes and power stations. These towers are not distributing power generated by nuclear fission. That is utter bullshit. They are harvesting the crystalline lattice membrane network's natural emittance of highly positive energy and carrying that energy to a power station. The power station is full of shit. Power station's senior management were all 33rd degree Freemasons. They harvest the natural Earth grid energy that is unlimited and abundant, and they supplement that usage with steam heated by radium. As shown in the device that T. Henry Morey designed. In his book, The Sea of Energy in Which the Earth Floats, Morey used a copper cable suspended over the ground between 2 poles, about 20 feet in the air. He surmised that the energy he was extracting was coming from space, hence the name of his book. But now we know that the energy he was harvesting was emitted from the ground below. They use radium. Now think of the Simpsons cartoon intro with a green glowing crystal that Bart grabs on his skateboard as he bounces off the roof of the family vehicle reversing out of the garage. Radium is a green glowing rock crystal looking thing, and Homer Simpson works at a nuclear power plant. These plants are planted on the lattice membrane network. There is nothing nuclear going on here. The power/energy comes from the nodal lattice membrane network itself. This was made obvious when Christian explained how train tracks, tarmac, and concrete were needed to reduce the positivity and healing energy along ley lines. Churches and cathedrals are situated at the ends of each ley line. The reason that villages, towns, and cities were placed where they were is because the village, town, or city will develop or spring up around a church or cathedral that was itself built on top of a major or minor node on the lattice membrane network itself. But they were built as healing temples, not places of worship. Because they can't have this technology knocking about, it would fast-track humanity and give them a possible advantage again, like the same advantage that Tartaria had when the Grey ET were left in charge of this realm for most of the Tartarian era. They nearly lost Realm 3 to highly advanced Tartarians, helped by the Giants, and Realm 2 with technology and systems that can be used to focus the Earth's natural energy grid and gather etheric energy, cold energy, safe and healthy energy that invigorates and heals the vessel, as opposed to killing it. This technology should not have been available to the Earth humans. It was previously only available for the gods themselves or the priestly classes. They had better versions of similar technology obviously, but this knowledge will function in all densities just via different media in each density. The parasites do not need copper to make energy, whereas here in 3rd density, we need copper, or at least we needed it until recently. In the last reset, before 1728, the Druids were the Freemasons of their era. The secret sect that had special knowledge is always required. These groups of people are privy to information that the general public of any era never get to hear about, ever. They are the filter between the gods. Highly malevolent ET and the elite sold souls in charge of the farm's day-to-day managerial structure, royal families, dukes, duchesses, earls, lords, sirs, dames, etc. They're all glued together by the craft of Freemasonry. The royal families were merely the first people of Terran human, or ET species that happened to be unlucky enough to be here when the parasites arrived en masse and cornered these Terrans. Imagine it, you are a highly benevolent soul, a loving, caring, and devoted family-orientated being with much love in your heart, never even sworn in your life, never seen anything bad happen, never been hurt. Never seen anyone get hurt, and never hurt anyone. Life was better than good, life was better than utopia, and then they came. They flooded the entire realm with seawater from Realm 1 into Realm 2, using energy fields. They contained a circular plug of water, dividing Realm 2 in half, just like the red bullseye on a dartboard. Imagine 200+ meters of red dot rising up off the horizontal dartboard, just the red dot that was the Great Flood. That water was pumped into the red dot fake Realm 3 from the outer yellow ring on the dartboard Realm 1. They then froze it to make sure you were all dead. That was the first ice age. The people they didn't manage to drown and freeze to death were mostly eaten by velociraptors shortly after, which are one of the only real dinosaurs that actually lived. They were created specifically to be very fast and extremely vicious killing machines, easy to vril. Once vrilled, they had very intelligent and extremely fast and vicious killing machines designed to hunt the Terran human and ET survivors out, which was back then, roughly 150 million Terran, and IRO 50 million ET of various other species, all highly positive and highly advanced beings, 9th density upwards. No one had ever seen a monster before. We all knew who the custodians were, obviously. They were not always bad. They hid their cloak and dagger mentality for millions of years. In that time, they created vast armies of monsters, basically, and the other parasitic species that went on to create their own species. None of the Terran humans or ET souls had seen a negative ET before, not one of the huge killing machines that now stood in front of them, genetically modified monsters void of empathy, designed to only destroy and torture. You have just lost your entire family to a rampage by these monsters. The Anak were the first really successful creations of the custodians. The Anunnaki were masters of design. They gave the pyramid to the Earth people to use as free energy and homeostasis, but they used this same technology 500,000 years or so later, when they arrived with the custodians for the initial first occupation and reset ARO 40,000-ish years ago. So these royal families are merely the Terran human and ET souls, who were left with little to no options other than certain death and likely soul torment for having dared deny a parasite what it wants, i.e., your compliance. Honestly, wait till you see the beast that these parasites created to terrorize you with. It's fucking shocking. All the myths of sea monsters are real, the creatures they manufactured on the Mars colony, the twisted geneticists who wanted to run berserk with creating life, just hideous life, ugly blob life, mutant life, chimera life, disgusting aberrations of creativity, designed to suffer itself in mockery, or to create suffering, making a human pig, a human dog, a human cow, a cow with a human face, and a human soul in it. Horrific genetic experiments. So custodians were off warring with the Anak and Draco over other territory issues, most likely new potential adrenochrome-worthy planets elsewhere on Gateway 10. And in that time, roughly 1,000 years, or a whole reset, the giants in Realm 2 helped their trapped kin on the other side of the ice wall to amass technology and information to create the great civilization of Great Tartary. It was the giants who had the knowledge to create the architecture, the giants who had the knowledge of frequency and vibration. The giants created the stage for that entire reset, based on what the cabal of the time wanted to remain as knowledge of the gods. And when the giants had finished creating it all, they were destroyed and almost deleted from history, save for children's stories and Hollywood blockbusters in plain sight. The Divi Greys were not paying attention on the 2nd September, 1666, when an event like we see in the movie, The Tomorrow War 2021, happened, where a portal opens up in public at a football match somewhere, and positive ET, I think from memory they are Earth people from the future, step out to help. Well, something similar happened in London in 1666. It wasn't caused by a fire that started in a baker's in Pudding Lane, and neither was the original St. Paul's Cathedral damaged. There was no original St. Paul's Cathedral. It's the same one that has always been there, exactly where it stands today. It has been there for almost 1,000 years. But where was I? Sorry, I well digressed there. The reason that it took the parasites so long was because they had to wipe out spirituality before they could completely take this world. Don't forget the Spirit DreamT. Mirror /Northern Rock /Black Rock /Toblerone logo /Outlook background, Panama Pictures logo went first. It had to go, then everything else that is very positive went. Gradually, over several thousand years, they slowly worked towards their demonic goal of complete planetary enslavement. This would have happened in 2016 at the U.S. general election. Hillary Clinton was supposed to have won that election. She was the most satanic psychopath on two legs that ever existed, and she would have started the eighth and final reset with utter glee the very next day. Trump, the infamous antichrist of biblical folklore, would have had his new office in Astana, right next to Hillary's, no doubt, where they could control all the FEMA camps and 15-minute cities in the world from one central capital, the satanic center of the new normal world. But it's great. You don't have to go too far to get shopping. Work is just around the corner. They even give you free vaccines and free vapes. What more could any NPC possibly want? Interesting that Kazakhstan, where Astana is located, was a Tartarian capital back in the day, and I would imagine that Astana is built right on top of that same former capital. They couldn't just go and wipe out all spirituality in one go because this is a free will system. So if you asked Big Chief Hiawatha if you could wipe him and his entire tribe out, the chances are that he would say, no. So you need consent to wipe them all out. But how do you get consent? From where do you get the genocidal consent to destroy an entire race of people? This is where politics comes in. Lie to your own people and get them to perceive a threat in some way from the people that you want to destroy. You can then inform your own people, when they have all met at the town hall, that these native types, well, we gotta get rid of them, obviously. Look what they are doing for whatever reason that suited them at the time. With a democracy, you can get your green light for anything, including genocide. The word democracy literal meaning, democratia, translates to rule by the people, yet is merely coded language meaning, a democratic dictatorship, where you vote for the dictator's visage, not their intelligence or integrity. A democracy means rule by the elite. The elite ruling class, priests, governments, etc. decide what they need you to agree to at private meetings such as the Club of Rome, the Bilderbergers, Chatham House, etc., and then create a situation where you will agree no matter what. That's how you get genocidal consent from your own people. They only need the majority to agree. The government is right. We must act immediately to remove this threat only because they fed you a load of shit, and you lapped it up. We need to be safe and protected, and we need to protect others, so we should agree. 520 million real people, some whole countries are NPC. Don't forget this fact. Some of the 209 countries here are completely NPC. Well over 99% of their population are all NPC, and obviously the parasites are well aware where all the true souls are because that's what they are here for. They know how many they have looping in birthing centers. They know how many are in Africa, America, UK, Europe, etc. They know how many they have taken off-world, like a fisherman knows where he keeps his lobster pots out in the ocean. The human soul is the currency of negativity. It's like the buffalo was to the Native Americans. The buffalo provided meat, milk, bone for tools, hide that made shelter. Destroying the buffalo destroyed the Native American way of life. They had to destroy the Native American way of life because it was highly spiritual, and, as we are well aware, they need to stamp out all positivity for many reasons. Because the parasites themselves are very low frequency, their entire way of life runs nicely for them in ULF ultra low frequency. If they entered one of our portals, they would fry like eggs in a pan, because our technology and way of life is centered around very high frequencies. That's why their most treasured product was human child-derived adrenochrome, because to create this drug/product, the victim must be kept in a state of unimaginable pain and suffering, no skin on its body, scalped, face removed and placed over the abusing witch's own face. The small child has not slept in weeks, terrified out of its mind, flayed alive whilst being raped with broken bottles and electricity. It's the worst imaginable situation on the physical plane of existence itself. Think about that, 9+ million children per year. 60% of those 9+ million children were sequestered away by the world's various child protection services, cartels that go by the name of Kafkas, social services, CPS. It's easy to see how it functioned. 33rd degree Freemasonry in police, courts, education, manufacturing, media, finance, law, health, science, astronomy, archaeology, history, religion, sport, construction/demolition, travel, agriculture, oceanography, climatology, art, Hollywood until they all got executed, etc., etc., etc. That's not difficult, is it? 33rd plus degree Freemasonry glued all this together for so long. It's easy to see when you have the right information. It's not even complicated. As previously discussed at length in several brief synopses, prior to the craft of Freemasonry witchcraft, the secret sect, or asterisk cabal of the reset before, was the Druids. The Druids had exactly the same purpose, but for the paradigm of the Westworld-like plane/the Truman Show stage of what we call Great Tartary, and likely what preceded, what has become known collectively as Tartaria itself. Asterisk a cabal equals a clandestine political sect. The Druids were originally the priests and priestesses of Egyptian temples after the end of that particular reset. Renamed as Druids, they ended up mincing about all over the place in various cultures, same as Freemasons these days. They always have the same tasks to perform: sacrifices, recruiting new powerful and influential Druids/Freemasons into the craft, and keeping the system running, using whatever means necessary to make sure that the stage always has enough actors on it so that the true souls never realize what's going on. As we covered a few years ago in a brief synopsis on ancient Egypt, the Valley of the Kings was not put there to preserve the remains of great rulers, was it fuck? The Valley of the Kings was the dumping ground for demon-infested hosts, the real victim royals of the time, and the ruling elite who killed children and ate other people. We have risen up against the parasites before. It's never ended well though, mainly because we only had bows and arrows, and them cunts had 4th density energy weapons, not exactly a level playing field. But we did try while we were getting sodomized by Ramses' troops again. I looked at Christian. Bruv, I thought you said it would be sweet this time. You said it would be sweet last time as well, bruv, don't forget. But look, I'm being sodomized again, bruv, bye, ouch, 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 ouch. Well, I lost count now, ouch, 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 quite a few battalions so far today, and I guess we will be set on fire again by lunchtime tomorrow. But this time at least, there's not been any pineapples involved. Every cloud has a silver lining. Society ran differently back then. Societal structure was bestowed at birth, ensuring that only ever would the elite be the elite. This is why the Greys fucked up on their watch and allowed the civilization of Tartaria to get way too advanced in 1666. Higher density brethren also later absorbed into Tartarian beings who escaped when Atlantis fell and ended up on the Irish coast at first. They escaped to a higher density overlay, still here, but out of sight, due to its density location vibrating too high for human perception to perceive. These former Irish Atlantean Tartarian LOL survivors were not subject to a 3rd density farm situation, but they saw how well the Tartarians were doing evolving spiritually, and so, on 2nd September 1666, they decided to help free you all. That was a big mistake. It cost everyone dearly. What we are all going through right now is because of how badly the custodians took the audacity of it. If that event had not happened, it would have been a little bit easier for us all here on the farm, one assumes. Not that it matters, we've all been killed many times over. This is one of the wonderments of Ascension. Every single being gets back what it has lost, no one loses out. Everyone will one day heal. But we all get a hell of a lot of memories back, hundreds, maybe thousands of lives in some cases. You will remember being Tartarian. You will remember being a giant. You will remember all the good things and also all the bad things that ever happened to you since you came in here all that time ago. Some rare souls are fresh in here. This loop from source creation never had a physical vessel before 18th density souls who never desired to even incarnate on the physical plane before. Shrewd motherfuckers. They're only here now because it is totally safe. There's billions of souls the other side of the firmament who would love to be in here right now for the end. It's a bit of a privilege to be honest, but we are at full capacity. It's too late to be born here and still be old enough to enjoy it. I can't wait to get my memories back. How amazing. Before I met Christian, I was well aware that reincarnation was real. I didn't understand why we couldn't remember past lives. I thought we chose our own parents and judged our own selves. That made sense to me, at least I got that bit right. But to have been so many different people with no continuous remembrance in linear or non-linear form, no chain of recognition and reborn as a blank, to have had so many lives over so many epochs, to have experienced so many things, so many highly unusual things, so much hardship. Trust me, you have. War, death, torture. I have lived in the only hell there ever was, dressed up like a candy cane fenced witch's gingerbread house. No one had a clue till Christian came along and basically said, "Hi everyone!" exclamation. "Just thought I'd let you know that you were all actually standing in the witch's kitchen your whole lives." It just looked like a sweet shop. Enticed in at an early age, herded into nursery school, kindergarten, as they call it in Spain, you start your programming. That wasn't just tomatoes in the ketchup. Ketchup is so named because they are offering you the opportunity to catch up, wake up. If the red sauce isn't just tomatoes, you don't want to know what the brown sauce was made from. As their satanic louche harvesting system moved forward with its demonic plan, gathering new sold souls as the machine groaned forward with the suffering of the species, the burden of that yoke will now be apparent to those who sold their souls, for they are already sentenced, executed, and their soul/S11 outside inside. Removed, currently in a former gray ET home world with no physical life to inhabit, not even a blade of grass. A soul must incarnate if on the physical plane. As we say, a soul, if *** trapped in physicality, must inhabit a vessel. If there are no vessels to inhabit, and that soul is on the physical plane of existence, that soul will be in torment, because it can't go back to the higher densities and light realms if it's trapped, and there is no physical vessel to inhabit either. That alone is daunting, but then they have the memories of every single sacrifice that they have committed, every person they harmed, every drop of blood that they drew, will be remembered on a repetitive loop. All that these souls will hear is a cacophony of children's screams. All that they will have to look at are their own sellout memories of child sacrifice and torture. It can't willingly leave by its own free will because of the parasitic frequency fence and amnesia vortex on the sun preventing the usual soul traffic, and incarnated without memory, knowing only that it needs to inhabit a vessel of some description. Being originally true souls, this will hit them like a fuck ton of shit, and they will remain there in this state of constant torture for likely a few billion Earth years, if not longer. Their soul-selling actions caused utter misery for every single species here on Gateway 10, not just the inhabitants of Realm 3, but the entire populations of the actual physical plane of existence itself. That's serious shit. To discomfort another being on purpose, that alone is serious shit. Let that sink in. If you were to intentionally piss someone off, with the intention of harm, or purposeful misery, you would be in serious shit. To punch someone in the face with the intention of harm, well, you just punched the entire species in the same face. You're in big shit. So imagine purposefully upsetting over 14,000 highly evolved species, taking the souls of their personal family members. The actual most treasured possessions that these beings have is the very souls that they sung into existence many millions of years ago, and now you trapped 520 million of those souls in here in this fucking shitbox farm, to be mind-wiped each death and harvested, tortured, eaten, lied to, raped and abused, disabled, and cast into poverty. Well, if you were part of that, you're well fucked. Basically, the custodians lied to everyone. They lied to all their own creations as well, their armies, the Greys, the Draco, and Anak. With the farm complete, the custodians were going to wipe out all the competition as well, create new partners if need be. They could then take the entire gateway as a farm, with all the souls on it, hacking their way up the stack density levels of source creation to ultimately destroy the source of all creation, replacing it with demonic AI. It was a bit ambitious. I mean, it's like a 3-year-old baby brandishing a pen knife, trying to rob a Xion master of his rice bowl. Pretty unfeasible. But evil is self-necessitating. It must do what it does, and that equals whatever is the polar opposite to that which is good and positive. Negativity thrives in low vibration. Positivity flourishes in high vibration. A child at play or excited and happy is the highest frequency possible. We use this frequency back home to turbocharge the realm's experience. More vivid colors, energy, and homeostases for all beings, generated from the pure frequencies of love and empathy, excitement and joy, from children at play. Whereas the same child strapped to an operating table and being flayed alive with no anesthetic is a very low frequency emission, exactly what the demons and parasites needed, the complete opposite, as usual. We need happy children, they need terrified children. They are bad, we are good. It's very simple, it's all very simple to see, break down and understand. Yet it is, however, very different from what anyone knew about previously, meaning to understand this, you need to press pause on your entire belief system regarding all conceivable topics. Even if you are an expert in a particular field, industry, whatever, you need to press pause on your currently perceived reality with all that entails. The Native American Indians are the peoples from South America. The Mayans, Inca, Aztec, etc. That was a previous reset. You will notice how they caused migration to facilitate the new repopulation requirements. So in many cases in the past where there has been mass migration, from war, snow, famine, rain, fire, the people who are migrating to the new location do not know that the previous population has just been harvested. They turn up after being forced to leave their home country to a new location that they do not know the history of, with a narrative already decided. These new people always end up in towns or villages with a disproportionate amount of young children with no apparent background, and I noticed recently they have no memories of their parents, or where they have been, and in many cases these children were 7, 9, 10 years old, with not a single memory of where they have been for 7+ years. That has to be the most *max situation ever. Actually, thinking about it, one of the women at my old probation office was from Somalia. She was very beautiful, but she couldn't remember a single thing before she was 9 years old, and she was only early 30 when I met her in 2022. No memory before 9. I put it down to severe trauma. I assumed her mind must have hidden traumatic memories, possibly of war in Somalia or something like that, but now when I revisit it in my mind, I'm not so sure. She was probably a reset clone baby mind wiped at insertion into Somalia after she left a dumb base lab age 9. *Mac equals highly suspicious / pretentious / glitzy / over the top / ostentatious / flamboyant / egotistical / cheap / flimsy / crass / rude. I wonder if Somalia has any Tartarian architecture? This is a good giveaway, too, if the country is even real or not. Because if there is Tartarian architecture, even submerged architecture, or covered-up architecture from the Tartarian era, then that country is real, as some countries are not actually real. They are merely extra overlays, different simulations. You pass these places on holiday. Sometimes you go to a town, the jewelry shops are full. There are car showrooms packed with bling motors, restaurants waiting with a 20-year-old waiter looking very humid at the entrance, and there's very few people there. It's season time, yet empty. A few people graze the shopping center, and a few locals congregate, but the infrastructure does not fit the demand. The area is over-catered for. These overlays are for specific reasons, and there are many of them. Continuity is one reason, display of success is another, the lure yet another. Undoubtedly, there is a plethora of financial scams going on here at the same time, but the large multinational companies who embedded there in the past, Ferrari dealerships, Porsche, BMW, etc. are an established part of the mechanism of deceit installed for a plethora of reasons. So they reset Mexico, the Yucatan, and South America, migrated some tribes north to Utah/Dakota, wherever else in the Midwest. That's why it looked like the Mayans had all just walked off, leaving cooking pots on the fire, pots in the wash areas, food still in the bowls, and apparently just disappeared. It's the same throughout history. When you see a civilization just upped and left, leaving everything in situ, that's what happened. They were reset. 13 Native American Mayan Indian. Kukulkan and Quetzalcoatl were the same person. Kukulkan was a Mayan god, and Quetzalcoatl was Aztec, but these were the same person. The Mayan gods were the Egyptian gods, the same sacrificial group of pretenders sacrificing human children and adults for louche, adrenochrome, and organs, exactly the same reasons as what was going on Epstein Island. Same people. Well, it was the Anunnaki who ran the farm back in Egyptian and Mayan times. The Draco joined the carnage after, and it was they who ran the farm through the royal families of this realm, the Phoenician bloodline families of 1. Astor 2. Bundy 3. Collins 4. DuPont 5. Freeman 6. Kennedy 7. Lyas and Bruce 8. Onassis 9. Rockefeller 10. Rothschild 11. Russell 12. Van Dyne 13. Merovingian, and the 13 aristocratic/royal bloodlines, also called the Council of 13. While the previous list focused on American industrial and shipping dynasties, this list emphasizes historical European royalty and aristocratic bloodlines that allegedly descend from ancient gods. They do not. They killed children and sold the rest of your species right out. 1. Rothschild banking and finance. 2. Bruce Scottish royalty. 3. Cavendish, the family of the Duke of Devonshire, often linked to the Kennedys. 4. Medici, the powerful Renaissance family from Florence. 5. Hanover, German and British royalty. 6. Habsburg, the Austrian/Spanish imperial house. 7. Krupp, German industrial dynasty. 8. Plantagenet, the medieval English royal house. 9. Rockefeller, energy and global policy. 10. Romanov, the last imperial family of Russia. 11. Sinclair, Scottish noble family often linked to the Knights Templar and Rosslyn Chapel. 12. Warburg, international banking family. 13. Windsor, the current British royal family. There is nothing special about these scumbags whatsoever. In fact, that's completely inverted itself. These people are the worst of the worst scum, child-killing poachers of the most heinous variety. Their greatest skill is to be able to keep a human child alive whilst in the most unimaginable mind-bending pain and suffering contemplatable. Imagine a society where your ability to keep a child alive and suffering while you are actually trying to kill it gives you kudos. Satanic witches are celebrated like NPCs celebrate footballers. They are highly respected for torturing children. 14. Mian, Kukulkan, Egyptian, Horus. It was the Romanovs who sold out the Tartarians. They wouldn't have been in power if it wasn't for them. Easy to deduce when you know reality, just saying. That's how easy it is when you understand the truth. Actually understand it for what it is. All else becomes easy. As you tug at a loose thread on the tapestry of life, at a thin thread that could hardly be seen, the embroidery starts to fall apart as you keep pulling. After a while, you can see a large gap in the previously tight weave. One such gap is the thread of fires. Fires are a giveaway, a great breadcrumb to follow on your path through history. As you follow that thread, you find that fires are always just before something happens that will change an outcome that is never in the public's favor. Fires are used at very convenient times to destroy public records, patent office records, land ownership details, even birth and death records of entire nations, and any other proof that can be deleted with this powerful natural element. But the problem for me, when I was at school age 12, maybe 13, is that we were doing a history lesson and the Crystal Palace in London was discussed. I saw a photo of it for the first time, a fucking great big greenhouse, for want of a better word. Basically, and my first question as I raised my hand in class was obviously, sir, how do you set fire to metal and glass? I thought the only wood in Crystal Palace was wooden plant pots. 35 plus years later, I got an answer, but not from the education system, from Christian 21 instead. But first, let's have a look at the remarkable coincidence of World's Fairs and Fires. 1893 World's Columbian Exposition, Chicago, USA. The cold storage fire on July 10, 1893, a fire broke out in the fair's cold storage building, killing 17 people. The White City Fire in 1894, a massive fire destroyed most of the iconic White City buildings, which were made of temporary staff plaster and hem. 1851 Great Exhibition, London, UK. Crystal Palace Fire. After being moved to Siena, the structure was completely destroyed by fire in 1936. 1873 Vienna World's Fair, Austria. Rotund Fire. The fair's central landmark, the Rotund, burned down in 1937. 1915 Panama Pacific International Exposition, San Francisco, USA. This fair was built specifically to celebrate the city's recovery from the 1906 earthquake and fire, which displaced roughly 2,000 people. Fires often trigger large-scale human movement by destroying livelihoods or through renovation by fire. Great Fire of Smyrna, 1922. This catastrophic urban fire during the Greco-Turkish War led to the evacuation of 80,000 to 400,000 refugees. Great Fire of London 1666 left 100,000 residents homeless, forcing them into refugee camps in nearby villages. It permanently 15 Joseph Paxton 1008 and 3. 1065. Crystal Palace, 1894, destroyed 1936. London, England. Shifted London's population and urban design, and instigated the birth of insurance. Nicholas Barbon established the first fire insurance company, the Fire Office, in 1667, a year after the Great Fire of London, leading to the modern insurance industry. The fire accelerated the migration of the aristocracy and wealthy merchants to the West End, Covent Garden, and Bloomsbury, leaving the city primarily as a financial and commercial hub. While London's fire was earlier 1666, the early 9th century saw massive urban destruction that forced significant rebuilding and migration. The Fire of Moscow within 812. This is one of history's most famous scorched earth events. As Napoleon's Grand Army entered the city, Russian authorities and residents set Moscow ablaze to deny the French supplies. Roughly 2/3 to 3/4 of the city were destroyed, including over 6,000 residential buildings and 122 churches. Nearly all of Moscow's 270,000 inhabitants fled before the French arrival, creating a massive internal refugee crisis toward the Urals and the south. The Great Fire of Hamburg in 1842, occurring just before the mid-century fair era, destroyed 1/3 of the city's center. It served as a landmark for modern urban planning, leading to the creation of the first integrated underground drainage system in continental Europe. Mass migrations in Europe 1816-1817 eyewitness accounts of the Great Midwest Fires of 1871, specifically the Peshtigo Fire and the Great Chicago Fire, which occurred on the same night, not coincidentally, October 8, 1871, which is Wellmac by itself. I'd just like to point out, but eyewitness accounts show this to be an unusual fire. Father Peter Pernin, a parish priest who survived the Peshtigo fire and wrote a famous and vivid account of it, which was published in 1874. In his memoir, The Great Peshtigo Fire, an eyewitness account, Father Pernin described several phenomena that defied the typical behavior of fire. He reported seeing large flakes of fire that resembled falling stars descending from the sky. He described the air itself as being on fire, with flames leaping from house to house and crawling along like a snake through the air before ever touching the ground. Other witnesses in the region reported seeing balloons of fire or spheres that would descend and explode upon hitting buildings, causing them to burst into flames instantaneously. Father Perrin noted a preternatural silence. Preternatural equals occult / otherworldly / bizarre / supernatural / weird, followed by a distant roaring sound like a freight train or the earth itself tearing apart just before the firestorm arrived. Beyond the 1871 fires, several other historical events featured reports of fire behaving in ways that seemed unnatural to witnesses. In the 1871 Great Michigan Fires, occurring simultaneously with Chicago and Peshtigo, residents across Michigan reported meters or balls of fire falling from the sky and igniting the forest floor. During the French occupation and the 1812 Fire of Moscow, witnesses described fire that seemed to spring from the ground or appear in multiple disconnected locations simultaneously, leading to widespread rumors of French incendiary devices or hellfire. Continued in Part 2. 16.